Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to Library Instruction Together, Building a Community of Practice on a Shoestring Budget, brought to you by the ACRL University Library Section's Professional Development Committee. We're so delighted to have you and our presenters here today. I am Sam Harlow, pronouns she, hers, and I'm one of the co-chairs of this committee. I'll be moderating this program along with my colleague, Alicia Vandering, my fellow committee member. This is one of an ongoing series of online programs sponsored by our committee. Before I introduce our presenters, a few logistics. This session is being recorded and we will send the link to the slides and any other relevant information, video recording on YouTube to everyone who registered for this program. You can access the slides during the session if you wish through the link in the chat that I'll put there, or one of my co-chairs will put there in a second. The total program will run for an hour, including time for questions. Please feel free to add questions to the chat box throughout the presentation at any time. Alicia will be collating them and will be prepared to read them to today's presenters. As you use the chat feature, please make sure you send your message to everyone so that everyone can see what you're asking, to not repeat questions over and over again. If you need to ask us something privately on the panelist end, that's fine, but just please let us know that so that we know not to put your question into the list of full questions. So recognizing that the ways in which marginalized voices are represented on the committee can only go so far. So this LIT committee, the Library Instruction Together Committee, would like to structure incoming questions using the practice of something called progressive stacking, by which we mean that questions from participants who identify as belonging to marginalized communities will be placed in the queue before others. If you identify as a part of a marginalized community, please place an asterisk before your name in the chat and we will prioritize your question or comment as we go along. So I'll put that in the chat as well, the asterisk element. So we will post a link to a brief evaluation in the chat box after the Q&A session. So please take a few moments to give us your feedback on today's program. So with those announcements out of the way, I am very happy to start today's program. They're going to introduce themselves because, as you can probably see, there's a lot of presenters today. So they'll fully introduce themselves as they see fit. So without further delay, I will hand it over to our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to present, and everyone here that's joined. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We hope you'll find some useful information in our presentation about how we build our little community of practice, and you can use this to build your own. I'll do some quick introductions here. Please say hi when I introduce you. I'm Aaron Weimer. I work at the Citadel Military College of South Carolina. Laura Sheets from Bowling Green State.
Hello.
Lindy Wibking from Roane State Community College.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Jenny Harris from Austin Peay State University.
Hi, everyone.
Ashley Roach Freeman from University of Memphis.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Sarah Smith from St. Louis Community College.
Happy afternoon.
And our newest and unfortunately missing member, Andrea Kincaid from Chattanooga State Community College. I'll say hello for her. Hi. Hopefully she'll be joining us shortly. To give you a bit, can we go to the next slide, please? To give you a bit more context, we're all mid-career librarians, academic librarians. All of us in some way are managing up. We're also leaders at our institutions, some of us as deans and directors, some of us as experts in their areas of research or service leadership roles. Originally, all of us were physically working in the state of Tennessee, but we're spread all over the place now. We represent a wide range of academic libraries, including community colleges, research universities, military colleges, etc. Here, my camouflage today. Oops. Laura, would you like to take over on the next one?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. So the steering committee has been relatively stable with Sarah, Ashley, Jenny, and Aaron on the committee since the beginning. I was also an original member, but I rolled off when I moved outside of the state of Tennessee in 2019. Lindy and Andrea joined in 2019 to help plan for the 2020 conference. But since then, the only change has been me rejoining this year since our focus has gone national. This group has been very gracious to allow me to come back, which increased the steering committee to 7 from our traditional 6. We have a democratic structure with no permanent roles like president or vice president. Everyone on the committee steps up to complete whatever tasks need to be done, even if it isn't in their comfort zone. We each have our own skill set and find ways to bring those skills, backgrounds, and expertise to help LIT be successful every year. We also try to take a blue collar approach to the conference by focusing on the work being done by teaching librarians. One of the ways we demonstrate this value is by not including keynote speakers at our conference, and this allows space for the most practical topics and takeaways for attendees. So how did we actually get this started? As the new director for Columbia State Community College, Aaron was looking for a professional development conference for both himself, but also the librarians at his institution to attend. In particular, he was hoping for a conference that was more focused on instruction, similar to the Georgia Library Instruction, Teaching, and Reference Conference, since he had just relocated from Georgia. In the fall of 2016, Aaron sent an email to the Tennessee Deans and Directors listserv asking if there were any such conferences in the area. In a crazy fit of optimism and hopefulness, he also added to the end of this message that if there wasn't one in existence, maybe someone out there would be interested in helping him create one. Sarah was the similar person that had optimism and hopefulness, responded to him. She was the director at Volunteer State Community College at the time. She responded to Aaron and said that if he really wanted to do this, that Sarah would be very interested in helping him. So in November of that year, Sarah sent a follow-up email to Aaron that simply asked, hey, are we actually going to do this? Since Aaron was new to Tennessee, Sarah reached out to colleagues that she knew would be interested in joining this little ball of potential, which included myself, and invited them to the first interest in discussion meetings. From the beginning, we knew we wanted to build a community of practice for teaching information literacy, but what that looked like and how we were going to do it had yet to be determined. So Lindy is going to talk about how we define community of practice and how LIT actually came to life.
All right, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give us a definition of that term, community of practice. From the beginning, that's how we thought of LIT, but it can be, sort of a nebulous term. So I'm just going to read one definition to you. We like this definition from the Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium, which defines community of practice as a group of people who share a common concern, set of problems, or an interest in a topic, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. So when we talk about community of practice, that's what we're talking about. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges of building this community of practice in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee is a relatively large state. It's split across 2 time zones. There are multiple academic systems. You've got the University of Tennessee system, which includes UT Knoxville, Chattanooga, UT Martin, and the medical school in Memphis. And then you've got the Tennessee Board of Regents system, which is made up of community colleges and technical colleges, as well as, of course, public libraries and special libraries and school libraries across the state. So we wanted to bring together librarians from across Tennessee who work in different settings, have different levels of experience, people at different stages of their careers. We wanted to give everybody an opportunity to come together and have a space where we could teach each other and help each other, where we could share ideas. And we always knew that we didn't want to focus too much on having, big keynote speeches or leaning on the sage on the stage model. We knew we wanted it to be very collaborative and interactive from the beginning. Next slide, please. Some of the inspirations behind LIT include a group called the Library Collective. The Library Collective has a very low cost model. It's focused on affordability. It's relatively informal, and it has that kind of unconference mindset that we liked. LOEX is the Library Orientation Exchange. which is a clearinghouse of scholarly publications and other resources related specifically to library instruction and information literacy. And LOEX also has an annual conference. GLITTER is the Georgia Library Instruction, Teaching, and Reference Conference, which is a conference that focuses on bibliographic instruction at the regional level, obviously in Georgia. And then TILC is the Innovative Library Classroom, which began in Virginia in 2014. So it also has, a bibliographic instruction focus while being a local, or at least regional event. So all of those things inspired LIT. We wanted to have that informal mindset of the collective while focusing on bibliographic instruction and bringing that in regionally. Next slide, please. The goals for LIT from the beginning, we've recognized a need for information literacy professionals in the Mid-South to be able to come together and network and present in different formats, such as workshops, roundtables, and interactive sessions. We've always tried to focus on sharing applicable tools and strategies for instructions, something that, participants can actually take back to their libraries and put into practice. We've also had a goal and founding principle from the start of inclusivity. We want LIT to be a warm and welcoming place for all librarians. Next slide, please. Some ways that that LIT, I think, is slightly different from other organizations. We're a very reflective group of people after every conference. Each year, we sort of, after the conference is over, we breathe a sigh of relief, but then pretty quickly we start reflecting on how we need to evolve for the next year. And so it's kind of an iterative process where we take feedback from the participants and we provide our own feedback as well to make sure that we're continuously improving LIT as much as possible. There is a democratic structure, as Laura mentioned earlier, both within the committee, in terms of how the seven of us work together, and also really in terms of the conference itself. Like I mentioned, we're not really interested in keynotes or sage on the stage style lectures. We really want to be participatory, and we encourage everybody who works in a library, including library assistants, library staff, and library school students to join us and to present if possible. We have an anti-ivory tower mindset. That's how we think of it. I think Laura, or it may have been Aaron, used the phrase blue collar librarians. And that's how we think of ourselves. That's how we think of LIT. It's mostly focused on applicability, not so much on theory. It's a low cost, low barrier way for new grads or otherwise entry-level librarians to get some support and instruction and get to participate in a conference. It's very low cost or even zero cost. This year, it's no cost to register at all. And we do have progressive values. As I mentioned, inclusivity certainly is first and foremost in our mission and our code of conduct. So those are some of the ways that I think LIT stands out. And I will turn things over now to Jenny.
All right, thank you, Lindy. So now that we've given you some background on how we started, I'm going to share the first few years of conference planning and some of the successes and challenges that we learned each time we organized our annual conference. So we began in 2017 meeting and talking, and our first actual conference that we held was in 2018. As Laura mentioned, this idea of a community of practice, we began that conversation in 2016. So we had essentially a solid year to get the ball rolling. And although that might seem like a long time, it actually wasn't for all of the pieces that had to go into place to pull off a successful conference. This included marketing. So we had to create a logo, develop a website, advertised the conference. We utilized listservs quite a bit for that. We shared with colleagues across the state and reached out to library and information science programs, as Lindy mentioned. Additionally, we had to find an inexpensive conference venue since we didn't have any money to begin with. So that was another challenge, was securing a location. We also had to find a caterer and work out all the logistics around dietary needs and restrictions. So once we had a location secured, we had to then send out a call for submissions, review the proposals, contact presenters, set the schedule, and a number of other tasks. So that's just to give you an idea of the planning stages at the beginning. Next slide, please. So in the first 2 years, as I mentioned, our first conference was held in 2018, and that was held in April on a Tuesday at the main branch of the Nashville Public Library. It was a one-day conference, and that was an intentional choice to not only help with keeping costs down for attendees, but to be mindful of traveling since Tennessee is a long state and people were coming from either side of the state. We wanted to be cognizant of the time that they were taking away from work. So that first year we had 77 individuals register, and 68 of those actually attended the conference. Our second year, we moved to Austin Peay State University. That was 2019. And we moved the conference to June as opposed to April. And that was based on feedback from the first conference. So each year we have done a survey to actually get evaluation feedback to see how we can continually improve. And so we moved our conference to June, and that was in part to avoid conflicting with other conferences, both at the state and national level, such as the Tennessee Library Association annual conference, which is generally held in April, and LOEX, which is generally held in May. So at our second conference in 2019, we increased registration to 90 individuals, and we had 82 in attendance that year. Next slide, please. As you can see in the picture here, this was our initial logo design with lit, and that's an open book. And then these other pictures are from our first year at the Nashville Public Library. We have, this is the original steering committee members minus Sarah. And that's also a picture of the auditorium from the Nashville Public Library, where we did introductory remarks at the beginning. So as I said, the first year was at Nashville Public Library. And just to give you an idea of the conference itself, we held that from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We had 8 total sessions throughout the day. So we had 4 breakout session slots throughout, and then 3 lightning talks or lightning. Those were 15-minute talks where individuals just shared sort of quick snippets of information in those. We also reached out to vendors, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. And we had a couple of vendors who set up tables at that first conference. Our first year, the conference was completely free. We did have a $15 flat fee for catering, which was an optional choice if individuals wanted to have a catered lunch at the conference. Next slide. So this picture is from the first conference as well. This is one of the standard presentations, and as you can see, it was well attended. In addition to creating a space for librarians across Tennessee and beyond to discuss instruction, we also wanted attendees that first year to leave with something to represent lit. So there's also a picture here of a poster that we had made, and we worked with Hatch Show Print. I believe Ashley coordinated that effort. Hatch Show Print is a letterpress print shop in Nashville, and so they developed this really cool poster that librarians could take away with them from the conference. So it was something to remember lit in the first year. We did charge for those, which was also a way to get a little bit of money. That was a $10 fee so that we could plan for our next year. Next slide, please. So these are some images from our second conference, which I mentioned was held at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee. This was due in part, again, from feedback from participants about navigating downtown Nashville in the middle of the week and parking, which is not fun. So we did move the conference to Austin Peay, and since I work at Austin P, it was really easy to help facilitate all of the logistics that went into getting the rooms and spaces and catering and things like that. So that was another reason to move it to that particular location. We did implement a conference registration fee the second year, and that was primarily to cover catering cost. Again, when you're working with an institution, we did have to use the caterer on staff at Austin P, and so those costs really were just to cover so that we could break even with food and things of that nature. In addition, we had coffee and prepackaged snacks that were available throughout the day. So our second year, as you can also see from the image there, we developed a conference theme. The first year was simply lit because it was our first year. So in the second year, our conference theme was connected, mindful, active. And one reason we developed that theme was to give a little more intention and purpose with the proposals that we were seeing as well. And in one of the picture on the right there is an interactive session. So you could see that it was, again, well attended and individuals were up moving around and engaged with the content. So that was exciting to see. All right, next slide. So what came next? What happened in 2020? I think we all know we had a bit of a pandy pause for the pandemic. So after 2 successful years of LIT, we were excited for year 3. We ask attendees to submit an evaluation survey each year, as I mentioned, and we were taking those that feedback and suggestions to heart and making changes, and we were gearing up to start marketing our 3rd year. And then spring 2020 rolled around and COVID hit, which none of us want to talk about that anymore, but we did have to make some choices about what we were going to do moving forward. So at the time, we were not prepared to pivot to a virtual environment. So we paused our conference in 2020, and we did not have a LIT conference that year. But we bounced back and recovered. And now Ashley's going to talk about what came after that.
Thanks, Jenny. So as we remember, the years 2020 through 2022 were dramatic for the whole world. In our little corners in Tennessee, we mourned our in-person connections, and we were concerned about what would happen next with our community of practice. But in these years of being alone together, we longed for the connection that we felt at our in-person conferences in the past. In 2022, we decided to try something that would reconnect us to our roots, organizing a small, focused in-person retreat by breaking into 2 subcommittees to organize 2 events. We all work collectively on both, but logistics and scheduling are organized by the subcommittees. The retreat is still in its infancy, but as folks return to the conference circuit, we look forward to these opportunities to show up and connect with one another. So at our first virtual LIT in 2021, we had the theme of persistence and resilience, which must have been something that people were feeling and needing because we had 340 attendees from all over the country, way far beyond Tennessee. This was really surprising for us. We had a lot of anxiety about who was going to come to the virtual conference, if people were virtual conferenced out, everybody was sick of Zoom. We had no idea what to expect. But it was a total delight. We all split up introducing presenters and moderating the chat. And we had a couple of special sessions, some online coffee and happy hour for attendees to meet with the committee and chat. The presenters were incredible, and the theme was persistence and resilience, like I said, but we've ultimately found that so many of the presentations were focused on compassion for students and for ourselves as a tool during the overwhelming and unpredictable challenges that we were facing during COVID. Our 2022 virtual gathering signaled that things were starting to feel a little bit more normal. The virtual attendance is a little lower in 2022, but still impressive. And we felt confident planning and holding our first retreat at Austin P in Clarksville, Tennessee. So we, did not know exactly what the outcome of the retreat was going to be. And I think we had about 10 people. So it was like incredibly intimate. And yet it felt like really good to be among others again. So here is some of the imagery, like sort of psychedelic imagery that we used to market the retreat, which was really focused on presentations and well, even less presentations. It was like we wanted to focus on talking about self-care. And so we had sessions on imposter phenomenon. We had sessions on mindfulness and meditation. We had a quiet room that if people needed to retreat from the retreat, they could go in there and take a pause. And we also had a session that was about labyrinths and making labyrinths and using labyrinths as like a mental tool of like finding new ways through challenges. And it was cool. And then here's the committee after the retreat. We went and we did like a scheduled formal French exit, which is just like, we're going to deck out a little early and have a snack and maybe a beverage and some casual conversation afterward, which was really fun and sweet and homey. So I'm going to let Sarah take over from here, who's going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of the conference itself.
Hi, yes, I'm going to elaborate briefly on how we make lit events happen. So as Laura mentioned earlier, next slide. Thank you. As Laura mentioned earlier, we organize ourselves democratically and without formalizing leadership roles. Committee members take joint ownership and accountability for the work it requires to carry out the lit experiences. And I think, aptly describe ourselves as a conference planning cooperative. The steering committee members are its stakeholders and investors, and we all collaborate and support each other to make lit happen. So some examples of tasks that we accomplished in a collaborative process are listed here, and we all volunteer for them. So no one has a leadership role. We just assign them to each other, as mentioned earlier. No one's voluntold. So we identify what we feel most capable of accomplishing, and then we do tackle those tasks. And this works for us because it's our shared investment and LIT's continued success. Plus, we genuinely like, respect, and demonstrate care for each other. So we'll step up to cover tasks for someone else whenever the need arises. Now for something completely different. There are, of course, financial realities to executing a conference. So imagine starting from scratch, as we did with LIT. No money, just an idea. And how do you sell that idea to vendors or sponsors when we don't really know our reach, like how many participants will actually be involved in the LIT conference? So we essentially cold called sponsors to obtain donations. And as mentioned earlier, we were initially successful in identifying some. COVID did help some vendors reprioritize, but so did we. As we started LIT, also, I should note, we didn't have a bank account, so where does the money go? So my then institution, their business office generously agreed to serve as our agency fund. But that arrangement actually caused a problem for us because we couldn't collect credit card payment for registrations via our online conference registration form. And so registrants would have to call the business office with their credit card information over the phone or mail them a check. And this is clumsy, as you can imagine. So a stroke of genius for LIT was to align ourselves with the Tennessee Library Association, or TNLA. I'll say that fast, TNLA, but that's what it is. A nonprofit agency that allows us to be LIT, an independently organized cooperative, while supporting us operationally. TNLA wrote LIT into their bylaws in 2020. We thank them very much for that. And its wonderful executive director, Kathy Farley, keeps track of our budget, which is lovely. And through TNLA's systems, we now have registration via credit card payment online, and we can also collect voluntary donations from LIT enthusiasts. So this was a big step in the right direction for us. But as in life, success is not always about money, although it always helps. We have also identified alternative ways to obtain support for our conference, such as from our institutions. And they help us by, for example, the Citadel provides us with our high-level Zoom access so that we can conduct our virtual conferences. University of Memphis has been very generous with providing us the ability to obtain swag for the conferences, such as that poster you saw earlier. We often, however, obtain support from staff at our institutions for things like printing, name tags, other materials, or contributing our in-person conference supplies. So the markers and erasers and pens that we provide, they're all from our institutions. Very importantly, our volunteers are critical support people for LIT, and they do things such as making proposals blind for us for our review, staffing registration tables, introducing our presenters, or reporting on our sessions or posting about them in social media. And I want to take a minute just to note, we really, really thank our volunteers because they've helped us execute LIT in every way. So it sounds trite, but it really does take a village to make LIT happen. And so now Ashley is going to catch us back up on LIT in 2023.
It's challenging to describe how we operate as a committee, and similarly difficult to recommend if it is a right method for you if you're interested in doing such an endeavor. However, this method has worked really well for us as we've grown and adapted. As members of the committee moved out of Tennessee, and as the virtual conference brought in folks from around the country, we speculated about the possibility of rebranding to be more inclusive of folks from outside the state. We rebranded because we hope to reach more librarians. Don't get discouraged if you don't have a major donor or partner. We have done the absolute most with the absolute least. Look for smaller partnerships and opportunities for support, and think about what you really need. We needed physical space for people to gather, so we worked with Austin Peay State University and Nashville Public Library. We needed to host a website that could officially take money for us, so we reached out to the Tennessee Library Association. We also requested smaller donations from our home institutions to help support the service that we were providing and that they were requiring. We also opted out of certain structures that might have helped us with things like accepting donations, such as forming a nonprofit. We considered it, but would have required a level of organizational acumen and a vision and a leader to guide that development. And we don't have anything against organizational acumen and vision and leaders, but we prefer a democratic structure. What we have works better for us, in that we can maintain our democracy, and truly it has allowed us a sense of mutual accountability and allowed us to flourish.
Also, take your time. Like, these things don't happen overnight. Clearly, we spent a good year and a half building this from nothing. And one of the many lessons we learned in doing that is just don't rush. You cannot rush through the planning process, especially if you're developing your annual or long-term plans, or if you're making significant changes between conferences. All those decisions have an impact on the operation, on both the operation of your performance or of your conference and on the participants who've chosen to spend their professional development time and money with you. And strategic thinking is key. Why are you making these programming changes, and what will the potential impacts be? Can negative impacts be flipped? Can positive impacts be adjusted, enhanced, have greater reach, etc.? One of those changes, as we like to joke internally, is the great coffee catastrophe of 2018. I'm not sure if any of you that are participating with us today were at our first conference, but if you were, I sincerely apologize for this. We hosted a great conference, but we were missing one thing: coffee service. We hadn't quite built up our coffers yet, and so there was no real way for us to offer the endless coffee bar. It was one of those sacrifices that we thought we had to make. Our post-conference surveys were very positive, but almost all of the respondents mentioned the lack of caffeine. It might sound silly, but with the level of response we received, we knew we had to do better in that area. I like to use the story as a way to say, listen to your feedback. Your membership will tell you how they think you could make things better, and taking the time to really listen and take action is important. And yes, we have coffee every year now. And also have fun. Building a conference from nothing is hard enough. Doing so with folks that you've just met can make it even more difficult. We were able to do it because of our dedication and approach to what we're collectively building. But if you were to sit in on one of our meetings and see how we really operate, you'd be amazed we got anything done at all due to the sheer amount of laughter that's going on. I would argue we're actually productive precisely because we're able to laugh at ourselves and do so frequently. We were and are exceedingly lucky in the way that we've come together and supported each other. We all want the same goal, and we all want to enjoy our journey to get there. And for us, this works. All of the things that every presenter has just talked about in terms of our democratic structure and the way we do things isn't something that just happened. It built over time. Andrea, would you close us out, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I joined a little bit late due to technical difficulties, but I'm Andrea. So what is next for Lit? We learned an important lesson from the pandemic that not only can we connect virtually, but we can expand our presenter pool to include more perspectives, and we can widen our audience so that more of us can learn from each other. The virtual conference is also a great opportunity for those with physical disabilities that may not be willing or able to come in person, and for those that come from institutions that don't have a lot or any professional development funds for their librarians. That also includes MLIS students or part-time librarians who don't have access to professional development funds, or new librarians that may not be prioritized for funding. Their perspectives are essential. Again, we're a democratic group here. So we could be much more inclusive with continuing to offer both virtual and in-person conferences. Next slide, please. And to that end, we invite you all to participate in both or either the virtual conference and the in-person retreat. Let's go to the next slide for details. So to ring in our new name of Library Instruction Together, our conference theme this year is Better Together. We are so excited that not only does our steering committee transcend state lines, our presentations and audience also extend beyond our state. If we are better together, let's be the best we can. We will host our in-person retreat on Friday, May 19th at the Nashville Public Library in downtown Nashville. We will have coffee. This is our solemn vow to you. And then our virtual conference will be Wednesday, May 24th. Both of these events are completely free to attend. You can register for either or both on our website, which is libraryinstructiontogether.org. Again, libraryinstructiontogether.org, and see programs for both of the conferences as well. We have some really exciting speakers from all over Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Colorado, Kentucky, Mississippi, Washington, D.C., Ohio, and our home state of Tennessee. You do not want to miss it. And if you can't make it this year, be sure to save the date to join us in May 2024. Next slide, please. So we have reached the end of our time with you today, and we do have time for questions. But if you want to reach us with additional questions, you may do so at libraryinstructiontn@gmail.com. Again, that's libraryinstructiontn@gmail.com, and it's in the chat for you. We hope to see you at our conferences. And as we say sometimes at the beginning of our sessions, let's get lit.
All right, thank you so much. We haven't had any, oh, actually it looks like there's a question that's just coming through now. So what about this whole process has surprised you the most, aside from the need for coffee?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I think the biggest thing has just been the camaraderie among not just the committee, but attendees. And for example, last year at our retreat, which was the first year coming back from the pandemic, we did the French exit, and almost everyone that attended the retreat, even though it was small and intimate, as was mentioned, everyone joined us afterwards, and we all had great conversations, and just it extends beyond just a traditional conference. Lit really feels different, and it's something I look forward to every year, and attendees seem to look forward to it as well. And so there's just a great opportunity to connect and share not just professional ideas and experiences, but just in general. So there's this great community of practice, I feel like.
I know that some of you others might jump in here too. I just wanted to say that we had a follow-up question that might work well with the one that you're just answering of, or what has been your favorite part? So we have what surprised you, what's been your favorite part working right now?
One thing I was going to just add, in terms of surprise, was just the overwhelmingly positive response from deans and directors from across Tennessee. When we first established this, they were very much on board and supportive of sending staff to attend our first conference, and really helped back us in terms of, yes, this is a worthwhile effort. So that was a really nice thing. And of course, it's always the people that will be my favorite part. The hallway conversations I've had with attendees, I've met so many fantastic librarians through the Lit experience, and I've followed them since as their careers have progressed too. And I think that's probably my favorite aspect of Lit.
Can I jump in on that as well? One of my favorites is being able to have those conversations. Also, there's nothing more fun than a 5-minute hallway conversation that solves problems that a 30-minute meeting won't. So, and I feel like a lot of that happens at our conference.
I was going to say that like the way that we organize and do the conferences themselves is something that surprised me the most. I felt when I got started with Lit and we would have our meetings, I was like, well, any second now, this is going to turn into some kind of structure that is regimented, and people are going to have jobs, and we're going to understand what all that is. And then like I actually started to relax and enjoy that we do work so well collaboratively and have such mutual accountability. I would love to be able to respond to the next question. Does anyone say more about their favorite thing? I just want to say that like Sean is asking if our participants have primarily been from academic libraries, and if we've tried to include public or K through 12 librarians, and if we brought them in, what was the secret to the success? And I have to say that our participants have primarily been through academic libraries. But at the TNLA conference last month, I did talk to several public librarians who had interpreted our rebranding from Library Instruction Tennessee to Library Instruction Together as a ideal, I don't know, hope that we might like be wanting to be more inclusive of different kinds of librarians. So the need has been expressed. In terms of how we're going to bring them in, I think that we're going to be having that conversation after our conference. So share this secret to your sauce.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, Ashley. Our speakers and most of our participants in general, I think, have definitely been from academic libraries, but we've definitely had people attend from public libraries and school libraries. I don't know that we've had any presenters from those groups yet. We'd love to, but yeah, we're one, Aaron. Okay, so hey, that's a start. But yeah, we've definitely had people attend from K-12 libraries and public libraries. And I mean, we have, when we're reviewing the session proposals, I know that we've tried to maybe expand our definition of instruction a little bit so that we're not ruling out like programming and outreach events and the way that those can be instructional, and also maybe somewhat more applicable to, say, public libraries. So yeah, we're working on that recipe. It's a work in progress.
We just had a new question that popped in of, do your conferences involve instructional librarians discussing in a roundtable fashion some of their instructional strategies and practices?
I can take this one.
Go for it.
I think that like and y'all correct me if this is wrong, but the first lit conference, maybe we just had like standard and interactive presentations. And then maybe like the next year I was like, well, what if we could suggest that people propose roundtables? Because I do think that there is like a desire for these kinds of roundtable conversations where it's like, what are you doing at your spot? Well, here's what I'm doing here. Where are your struggles? Here's where I'm struggling. Where are you succeeding? And so we do have roundtables. And I think we have had roundtables at every conference, but they're proposed by someone who would be attending and facilitating, if that makes sense. Like, we don't create the roundtables.
I will just add in response to one of the favorite things about Lit, which for me is, I look back on when I first became a librarian. When I graduated with my degree, I'd been working at a library for a year and a half, but my first librarian position was part-time. And, because you have to have experience to get a job, but then how do you get experience? That old chicken versus the egg debate. So Lit is a great way. There are not as many barriers, and it's kind of like a low stakes way to get involved in a conference, to see how presentations work, and maybe for these new young librarians to do presentations of their own, so that they are able to get some experience presenting at a conference. And like I said before, their input and their perspective is extremely valuable. A lot of instruction librarians have the feeling that they didn't get enough instruction during their MLIS program about how to do instruction themselves. And so this is a great way to continue that education for free, because again, sometimes new librarians aren't getting prioritized for funding for conferences and things like that. So this is a really great way for them to get both the experience of attending and presenting at a conference.
And as you both were speaking, we had a great comment come through about somebody who was about to ask if you were wanting proposals for presentations and posters, saying that they're from an academic library in North Alabama and they really need a road trip here at the library, and they think everyone would be jazzed to come to Nashville.
Come on. We'd love to have you. You don't have to propose to come visit us.
Yeah, you should come to the retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw in real quick. I know we're we've got a few minutes. My absolute favorite thing about Lit as a community of practice and as a conference is our steering committee meetings. We typically start, because we do a May conference. We typically start in September, I'll say. And the meeting is the most fun meeting I have all month. Because we've worked together for so long now, that, you know, we all come in with a good sense of humor, even if we're having a bad day. You know, this is the meeting that helps cheer everyone up. You know, we just have a lot of fun working on this together. And so I really hope that you all enjoy that what we're putting out, because it literally is just so much fun for us that we're just trying to share that joy. Thanks, Anna. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our presenters?
I'm giving it that minute of like, in case people are typing, you know, because Zoom doesn't tell me that. So as people might be typing, just to give people space, I will just give a couple of shout outs for our closing. You probably noticed I've dropped the presentation evaluation a couple of times. But I do want to say thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing your expertise with us today. I'd also like to thank Elois Sharp, as well as everyone in the ACRL office who is always here to help us make the magic happen for these presentations. Remember that we will send the link to the recording slides, and if there are any other supplemental documents for the session when it is available, it usually takes us a couple of days. A reminder to please fill out the evaluation one more time. It helps us. And people are giving you lots of praise in the chat. Any final comments or questions? And note that Ashley just dropped the library writing cooperative link in the chat as well. But any final comments from our panelists as we're wrapping up?
Save your professional development funds next year to incorporate them into Lit 2024. Please, I'll be back in Nashville. It's a great fun town to visit.
And if you're able this year to sign up for the retreat, please do so. We would love to see you. Nothing makes us happier than having a bunch of people around for us to chat with and discuss all these wonderful things that we talk about at our conferences.
And the presentations that we have scheduled are amazing. They're just both for the retreat and the virtual. Again, you can see those on our website, which we dropped a link to earlier. But I am super excited about the people that we have presenting. And again, they're from all over the place and lots of different perspectives. So that's going to be really exciting. So please join us.
And Sarah just dropped the link to library instruction together in the chat. So definitely check that out. And again, remember the slides will be included with the recording when we send that out within the next couple of days, as well as the evaluation if people miss that. That'll be staying in the recording. I'll share, as people maybe are putting final things in there, one of the best presentations I've ever seen at a conference was at Lit. It was on accessibility in terms of how we manage accessibility issues. There's like a panel of people. I think about that presentation often in my work. So thank you for that.
Thanks for the shout out. Appreciate it. Love it.
Yeah, so Andrew said, I remember that one. It was awesome. Yeah, it was. There was a lot of awesome ones, but I just remember that one very poignantly. It was a very thoughtful presentation.
Yeah. I just want to say
Okay.
I'm always blown away by our presenters. Like, of course, we're trying to sell ourselves and like, oh, come to our event, but like, we are not the reason you go to Lit.
Okay, well, yeah, and you're getting more praise in the chat. Okay, well, great. Thank you all for coming. I'm happy to give 5 minutes back to everyone. I'm gonna do that thing again. I'm gonna drop it one more time. There's the evaluation. So thank you again to all of our presenters. I just do want to note this was very impressive to me that they were able to pull all these panelists together for a large webinar. I think this might be as the most panelists we've ever had. So, but all right, we do have another one coming up next week that you've probably seen come through ALA Connect, and we'll promote it again on the day in the life of a digital intern. So check that out. It's on the ACRL ULS professional development webpage that was shared. And you know, if you see it come through ALA Connect, be sure to sign up for that one too. There's also going to be lots of panelists and students are going to share their experience, LIS students. So thanks again. I think ACRL can close this out, but I'm sure most people are leaving. I can see the numbers going down.